It appears division rivals the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens both have their eyes on similar players with the Minnesota Wild. We'll discuss all the latest trade rumors coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have some trade rumors today involving the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, who both apparently are showing a significant amount of interest in players with the Minnesota Wild, primarily a couple of their younger defensemen who very well could be up for grabs here and traded before the NHL Trade Deadline coming up on February the 24th. It's no secret that the Maple Leafs want to add a top 4 right shot defenseman, ideally even a top 2, and it's also no secret that Montreal wants some help in the blue line as well, especially now that Captain Shea Weber is going to be out for an extended time here as well. Now, both of these teams are in different situations. The Maple Leafs are in a situation here where they're battling hard for a top 3 spot, and the Habs find themselves outside of the playoffs, looking in, trying to battle up and see if they can grab onto one of the wildcard spots. It's not going to be an easy task. If the Habs do have any chance of climbing back into the lineup, having some help on the blue line would certainly go a long way in helping that cause. According to reports through The Athletic and reporter Michael Russo, he feels that the team that has the most interest amongst all the teams inquiring on defenseman Matt Dumba is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, of course, Dumba fits the bill for what they're looking for. They want somebody who can play top 2, top 4 minutes, certainly provides an offensive side of the game, and also somebody who's got term under contract at a reasonable rate and has some decent amount of experience. So Dumba checks a lot of those boxes. He's 25 years old. He's got 3 years left on his contract at $6 million. I know his numbers this year are down a bit, but in the past, he's proven to be a 50, 60 point defenseman. I do think he's got a lot of offense in him. He can play well over 20 minutes a night and certainly handle top pair minutes. He would probably fit in nicely with Morgan Rielly on the Leafs top pair. Now, when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs and the trade chips that they've been rumored to be looking to move in order to acquire another top defenseman, it's primarily their top young wingers like Kasperi Kapanen, Andreas Johnsson, perhaps even Alex Kerfoot has been thrown out there in the rumor mill as well. Of course, we just saw a pretty significant injury to Andreas Johnsson, who's pretty well going to be lost for the remainder of the regular season, so it's doubtful he would be included in a trade right now. I guess it is remotely possible, but not likely. I mean, this is not his first injury this year. He's had a tough season that way, so I can't imagine another team trading for him at this point in time. But a guy like Kapanen, for example, very well could fit the bill. The only problem with all of that is that the Minnesota Wild and GM Bill Guerin have made it pretty well known that if they're going to be trading any of their younger players like their top defensemen here in Dumba and Brodin, they're going to want to really fill the need at the center position, which is their area they're lacking the most right now. Bill Guerin really wants to ideally add a number 1 center to the team. If he can't get a number 1 center, he's going to want somebody who can play the role of a number 2 center with some other supporting pieces in place, whether it be a prospect or another roster player or some draft picks or something to that effect. So it's going to be like a number 2 center plus depending on what they turn out to be. Now, the Maple Leafs would probably have a difficult time fulfilling that type of need. Obviously, they're not going to be trading anybody like Austin Matthews or John Tavares. Alex Kerfoot does play center, but he wouldn't really be regarded as a number 1. I guess he could possibly blossom into a number 2 center, of course, where he's playing with the Leafs right now. He probably would be a number 3. So if Kerfoot's the player going to the Wild who can play center, then clearly they would have to add some other pieces. They'd have to include some other prospects. It's not quite clear exactly what that would be, and I do think that Maple Leafs might be finding themselves in quite a challenge to come up with a package that would satisfy Bill Guerin. Even though Matt Dumba checks all the boxes for them, of course, trading is a two-way street, and they have to check the boxes for what the Wild are looking for here as well. Of course, we've already seen GM Bill Guerin trade Jason Zucker. In the past 24 hours, we've also seen him fire head coach Bruce Boudreau. He's been relieved of his duties as well. So lots of changes are happening in Minnesota, and a couple of these prime defensemen I do think would bring back a decent haul for the Wild. It doesn't mean they're going to trade both of them, but I do think either of them could fetch a decent return to really help them go more towards this rebuild, and it appears as though Guerin is heading down that path. So given the fact that Guerin's looking for a top 6 center iceman, does it seem realistic to you that the Leafs could put together a package of players that would entice him to move young defenseman Matt Dumba? Now, jumping over to the Montreal Canadiens side of things, it's been rumored that they're more interested in Swedish defenseman Jonas Brodin. Now, Brodin's a little bit different type of defenseman than Dumba, doesn't put up nearly as many offensive points, but you're looking at about 20-25 points. He can play anywhere from 20 to 22, 23 minutes a night. He certainly can handle a top 4 role. He's 26 years old. He's got one more year left on his contract at 4.1, so very reasonable that way. Obviously going to need a new deal within the next year, but clearly wouldn't be looking for a substantial raise based on what he's making today. So he checks a lot of the boxes that Montreal will be looking for here as well. Now, in this report from Michael Russo, he feels that the Habs will be willing to trade center iceman Max Domi in order to obtain one of the Wild defensemen, and he indicates here that Brodin would be the more likely here of the two. Of course, Max Domi came over from the Arizona Coyotes in exchange for Alex Galchenyuk. We all know how that worked out with Galchenyuk going to Arizona, then over to Pittsburgh, and now back to Minnesota, the team we're talking about here today. Now, Max Domi had a nice season last year. Montreal really broke through, had the best season so far in his young NHL career, but we have seen regression this year. But there's a lot of other reasons besides his own play, I think, that could certainly explain part of that. The fact is the Montreal Canadiens have endured a lot of injuries. They have a lot of man games lost due to their forward group being hurt a lot of times. So he certainly had some different players he's been playing with. The lines have not been consistent like they were last year, and obviously that does play a role when players are looking at their production for the whole year. I mean, they've had a lot of guys going in and out with Durant, Armia, Byron, just to name a few, out for a period of time here. So clearly Domi's been rotating through different line mates, and that very well could be playing a role as well. But I do think it is a possibility the Habs could look to trade Max Domi. I know Habs fans probably don't like to hear that. He's been a very popular player with Montreal. Obviously, he's very offensive. He's not afraid to mix it up physically as well. Has a few fights. Clearly he's a fan favorite there, and I can certainly understand why. And I'm not saying Marc Bergevin is going to go out his way to shop Domi here. That's not where we're going at all. But Michael Russo, who's doing this report that we're talking about today, feels that Bergevin would offer up Domi in order to land a solid top 4 defenseman who's young enough that can keep in the fold for an extended period of time. Now, that would be a dangerous, risky move, in my opinion, by the Habs. Clearly, the center position is one that's been weak over the last number of years. Domi's come in, played center, done a pretty good job. They do have a few other guys that can play center right now, and they have a lot of younger prospects who have the potential of being a top 1, 2, or 3 center in the future, but right now, they're not that as of yet. So if they trade Domi, that would certainly weaken the center position, which is extremely important in order to upgrade the back end, which is also very important. So I'm not really sure, to me, that would make a lot of sense. To me, them going after Dumba or Brodin does make a lot of sense. I think either of those defensemen would fit the Habs very well, but to give up a player like Domi, not really sure that would be the best way to go, but that's going to be the type of player that Minnesota is looking for. Guerin needs to look at the center position for his club, and clearly that's what their biggest need is right now on that team. He's trading from a position of strength on the blue line, looking to upgrade the forward group, and clearly I'm not sure that the Maple Leafs or the Montreal Canadiens really have what they're looking for. Now, of course, Guerin could opt to look at maybe a prospect center who has the potential to be a number 1, number 2 center down the road. So it's not quite clear if he would accept that, but obviously you probably wouldn't want to be looking to trade guys like Konkaniemi or Ryan Poehling. They could certainly look to be top center iceman down the road, but they're not there as of right now. There was other reports from Russo in the last little while here indicating that the Carolina Hurricanes had been showing interest in Matt Dumba as well, and he believed that Bill Guerin likely would ask for young center iceman Martin Necas in return. So maybe he would accept one of the top young center prospects from Montreal in exchange for a Jonas Brodin. It's certainly a possibility, but I'm just not really sure that it's the best move, and I'm not really sure here that it's a trade that Montreal fans would want to see. So if you're a Leafs or a Habs fan, would you be interested in seeing them make an acquisition here from the Wild, one of their top young defensemen between Matt Dumba and Jonas Brodin? Do you think they can put together a package to make it happen? And is it a deal that you would want to see? Let me know what your mock trades would be down in the comment section, and we can discuss further. But keep in mind that Bill Guerin is looking for some help at the center position. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, turning on your notifications, and checking out our channel membership options as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will catch you next time.